Welcome and welcome back to my channel, Boomsby Beauty. If you are new to my channel, my name is Juliana. Alright, today's video is the second episode in my palette panning project. So if you've not seen the first video about my panning project, this project is about using my palette more. So what I do, or what I plan to do from the beginning of the year, was to have 5 palettes every 3 months to use and kind of like put them into rotation if you like. So I choose first 5 palettes in the first quarter, use them, and then in the second video I come back and give you an update of how I've used those 5 palettes, and then choose a new 5 palettes for the next 3 months. I will still be using the first 5 because at the end of the year I'm going to come back and give you an update on all of the 20 palettes I would have picked throughout the year. So for the next 3 months, I'm not only going to have this new 5 palettes, I'm also going to have the previous 5 palettes I picked up in the first quarter. So the first thing to do now is to give you an update of how I've used the first 5 palettes I picked in my last video. So these were the last 5 palettes I picked them in my last video. So I picked the Surge palette, which is my all-time favorite palette. I also picked the Cake palette, which was my all-time favorite before Surge palette. And then I picked the Mothership 5, Sydney Grace Enduring Love palette, as well as Playing in Makeup by Yolondo Infinity Unexpected palette. So I will link my previous video to this one. So when you finish watching this video, then you can go back and watch the first one to kind of find out why I picked those palettes. Alright, let's start with the Cake palette. So the Cake palette, in the last 3 months, I've only used once. I literally just used this quad here. I think it was for a weekly look, so I didn't get a chance to take any picture for that particular look, but yeah, I used it once. I think now that I have the Surge palette, it's just I don't know, I gravitate more towards the Surge palette than the Cake palette now, because they are quite similar in terms of color story, but because this is kind of like older than Surge, and so I just kind of like pick Surge all the time. But yeah, I got to use this once, but I will try and continue to use it. And in all fairness, I had a period of about a month where I wasn't applying any makeup, especially during the week. So during the weeks, at times I get to use palette that I'm not so crazy about, if you like. You know, palette that are like older palettes. During the week is when I get to use them. So because I wasn't doing my makeup during the week, I didn't get to use those palettes so much. I mean, the same applies to my Mothership 5. Mothership 5 is typically like a neutral palette, really. And the reason why I picked this last month was so I could use it during the week. But again, because I wasn't using any makeup, I didn't get to use this one at all. As in, I didn't even touch it at all. But I plan to kind of like change that for the next 3 months. And I'll give you the updates in 3 months time. For the Enduring Love palette, I did get to use this once as well. I mean, if you've not seen my declutter video, you need to go and see that, because I've got so many palettes. If I pick a palette for every day of the year, I can do without repeating a palette. That's how many palettes I've got. So you can imagine it's a stretch to try and use one palette more than once. So it's me going on this panning project just so I can use these palettes the more, and also keep myself busy from buying new palettes, because if I'm busy trying to pan some palettes, then I'm not going to get a opportunity to buy newer palettes, because I'm never going to be able to use them all. Anyway, I used Enduring Love once. The fourth palette is the Playing in Makeup by Yolondo Unexpected palette, and this palette I did use twice. So once really was because of this silver shade, because it's such a good shimmer shade that you can use for the inner corner, or to brighten some sort of look, or to give you some sort of, I don't know, dimension or diverse kind of look. But that's what the shimmer swatches are. So it's such a beautiful shimmer. So for one of my looks, I did use it for the inner corner highlight, but I also used it in a full look, which I'm quite excited and happy about. I'm not a grey person. I've never had a complete grey look on my eyes ever until I got this palette. I mean, by now the video of me swatching this and the story behind this palette should already be on my channel. I'll also link that to this video. So I did use the 2 palettes in a look. So for the Infinity palette, I ended up using 3 shades out of this palette. I mean, because it was a completely grey look, so I used this black, this one in the middle, as well as this beautiful silver shimmer here. It's just a beautiful shade. So I'm happy I did get to use this 2 times. Yeah, I'm quite happy about that. So, but I will continue to use it again for the next 3 months and just see where I get up to. Whether I will eat pan or not on any of the shade is left to be seen. But yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, the Swatch palette is the one that I've gotten the most use out of in the last 3 months. And I'm just going to hold it up gently because I've managed to kind of break one of the shades. So this orange is kind of like broken right there at the top, so I'm being very careful so it doesn't tip over. And the reason why it broke is because I took it along with me. I had to go to a do and I didn't finish up my look at home, so I kind of carried it with me to kind of use it when I get to the car park of the place where I'm going to. But then I forgot and left it in my handbag, and I carried it all with me throughout everywhere I went that day. So by the time I got home, a little bit of the orange was a bit crumbled. Yeah, so the Swatch palette is the one I've gotten the most use out of. So there's a look on Instagram where I use this whole column. So this teal column, I used all of that, and that's actually what I intend to do using this palette. I want to try and do a look per column because that's how really it's created, and I think it's quite inspirational and challenging to kind of challenge myself really to see if I can create a look based on each of the columns. And then when I'm done with that, I will try and go by row as well. But this is such a beautiful, gorgeous palette, and what I'm going to do as much as possible, I will put up a picture of where I've used this palette so you can just see the way I've used them and what the high look looks like with the palette. But yeah, so yeah, this one I'm quite happy that I've gotten a few use out of this one, and I will continue to use it. And in all honesty, I'm definitely going to be buying another one now that that one is broken, because it's quite annoying looking at the broken shadow, especially because it's one of my best shades in that palette. So I definitely know that once I hit pan in about 3 shades in this palette, I'm definitely going to be placing another for another new one. And I also want to compare to the new formula, because this is the original formula, which I think there's nothing wrong with, but she's changed the formula of the Swatch palette now, which is supposed to be better than the old one, and I don't know how she can better this formula. I'm quite interested to find out what the differences are going to be between the new formula and this formula. I love this palette, absolutely love this palette. If you are not very good with blending shadow and you're just starting over, this is a perfect palette to buy. You cannot go wrong. Honestly, it is, you cannot go wrong. Beginner, expert, whatever you are, you definitely cannot go wrong with this palette. Okay, let's get into the palette I'm going to be putting into the rotation for the next 3 months. So these are going to be the 5 palettes I will be focusing on mostly for the next 3 months, as well as using the other 5 like I mentioned before, but this will be my main focus. So let's start with Untamed palette. So this is the Untamed palette from Sigma. Now this palette, the reason why I pulled it out is Martin Cosmetic, I think that's what they are called. They have a particular palette that I love the color story, but I cannot buy it because of the name. It's just I can't buy it because of the name. I'm a Christian, and that name means something, you know, it's leading towards something. So for me, it's quite cringy, and my conscience will not let me buy that palette, but I love the color story. So what I did, and which is quite been helpful as well, because I went and looked at my collection to try and see which color story I can find that is so close, you know, to that palette, and this is one of the ones I found. So it's got like your grungy greens and all sorts, and it's also got like a pop of blue, which would be quite interesting. I mean, with this palette I can get at least 5 looks without having to repeat a look or repeat, you know, shape or whatever. I can get 5 distinct looks from this palette. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to using this one. Or another one I'm putting in the rotation is the Nabla Secret palette. I've had this palette for like a year, and in the space of that year I've used this palette once. It's really disgusting. This is the inside of the Secret palette. It's a beautiful color story, so I don't know why I don't reach for the palette. And it's honestly, the shimmers in it, they are quite beautiful. So it's not a case of that the shimmers are not working or the color story is not beautiful. I just don't know why. I mean, these are 3 of the shimmers. I'll quickly swatch that. I just touch them lightly. So I mean, they are quite beautiful, so I don't know why I just don't use the palette. So I want to challenge myself, you know, in the next 3 months to try and use this palette at least 2 times. So this is the inside of the palette once again. So it's got this black to kind of give depth to whatever look I decided to go with, whatever color. If I go green, pink, whatever, the brown, I can always darken the outer corner, you know, with this black. So I just don't know why I don't reach for the palette, but yeah, that's gonna change. All right, the third palette is gonna be the Greek Goddess palette from Luna Beauty. Now I hate the front of this palette. Look at that. I try not to look at the front, it freaks me out. But this is the inside of the palette. So it's a beautiful neutral palette. This is my kind of neutral palette. I mean, look at the ranges of those brown. So you don't just have like muddy, dirty brown or whatever. You've got like different rangings, and you've got this kind of reddish, urban, mauvey kind of shade. It's just beautiful. That to blend out the crease, depending on whatever your skin tone is. Or this one if you're lighter, and then the pop of blue. It's just perfect. And the shimmers are also beautiful in this palette. I mean, these are 4 shades from the palette. I love me a good shimmer. I mean, look at that, look at that. Those are enough for me to pick up this palette more, but I think because it's more or less a neutral palette, I don't kind of like gravitate towards it because I've got colorful palettes. When I have colorful palettes, I mean, they would always be the ones I will go for first of all. But yeah, so that's why I'm putting this in the rotation, so I can get more use out of it. The 4th palette I'm putting into the rotation is Venus XL, Lime Crime Venus XL. This is actually the first lime crime anything I'll be trying, actually, whether it's lipstick or whatever. I remember when people used to go crazy for the lipstick, I just thought they were too expensive, so I never went there. So I got this because my daughter really wanted something from Lime Crime, and I've been saying no to the lipstick as well, that if I can buy it for myself, you are not getting it. But I decided to buy this to surprise her, and when I showed her, she was like, no mom, there's no way I'm going to be able to use this palette, because she prefers like toned down colors. So I ended up being stuck with this palette. So I didn't really buy it for myself. In fact, I wouldn't have bought it for myself. I actually got it in a sales as well. I would never buy this at full price. I think Lime Crime is not one of the brands that I think of, you know, I want to get one of their products. I don't know why, for whatever reason. But this palette, I did get it because it was on sales. 2, because I wanted to give it to my daughter. Then 3, I thought if she didn't want to, I like the color story, I can make use of it. But so far so good. I probably use it once, and that's about it, you know. And it's such a beautiful and gorgeous palette. The shades in this palette, they are beautiful. The tones, oh my word. I mean, look at this matte. Look how rich and beautiful these mattes are. I'm gonna just try and swatch them all at once, but look at that. That is beautiful. And they are my colors, they are my sort of colors. So I don't get it. I don't know why it is. I think it's the brand. It's because it's the brand. I just don't, when I think of a palette to pick, is just not one of them. But the color story I absolutely love. I'm really eager to see what I can do with this palette. I'm also hoping that I can feature it in on my channel, you know, in a look or the other or whatever. But I definitely love this palette, and you will definitely be seeing a look from it on my Instagram, that's for sure. But I mean, look at this. This is gorgeous, and this is only 4 shades in the palette, and the shimmers are not that, you know, breathtaking. It's probably one of the reasons why I don't kind of gravitate. That's not like a deal breaker, because I've got that many single shadows and single beautiful shimmers that I can combine with this palette. But the matter what I want to focus on. Alright, the 4th and final palette is the Glamlite Ice Cream palette. Now, the reason why I picked this palette is because I recently used it in a look, and I just fell in love all over again with the colors. So this is the palette. I hope you can see all the colors at once. I mean, look how gorgeous this palette is. It's not only gorgeous, it's the fact that the shimmers, oh my days, the shimmers in this palette are out of this world. And it's also the right time to use this palette. It's a pastel palette. I mean, if I don't use it in the spring, when am I going to use it? So I just thought, definitely I've got to put it in the rotation for the next 3 months. And I'm going to swatch just a few of the shimmers for you. Now, these shimmers are on par with any single shade from any brand, you know, any typical brand, because they are look at that. Look at that. gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. That is beautiful. So I just don't know why I don't use this palette more. This is definitely one of my favorite palette from Glamlite. Definitely it is in my top 3. If you've not seen my ranking of Glamlite palettes, then I will attach it to this video as well so you can have a look. But this palette is gorgeous and it's beautiful. Yeah, and it's also the perfect time to dig out this palette. So yeah, I am gonna have fun with this one. Definitely gonna have fun with this palette. I mean, I would like to feature one of this palette, at least 1 or 2 of this palette on my channel. So if you have any suggestion on out of these 5 palettes you want me to feature on this channel to do a look with, or whatever, or whichever one you are curious about, then please let me know. So if I don't get any suggestions, I know I'm going to be using the Glamlite XL palette, but apart from that, if nobody gives any suggestion, then that will be the only one I'll be featuring in. But there will be looks from this palette on my Instagram. Alright, I hope again I've been able to inspire you to dig into your stash and use your stash more, just like I'm trying to do. I mean, obviously there are some tempting palettes here and there that I've picked up since January, but compared to last year, it's such a dramatic difference. Honestly, such a dramatic difference, which I'm so happy about. So let me know what you think so far on this series, if it's up to you, if it's not, what you've changed. Whatever your opinion is about this project and this video, please let me know. But that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've enjoyed hanging out with me. If you have enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you on this platform. And until next time, I'll see you.